excerpt was taken from a full and bloom interview with guitarist Adrian Vandenberg. To listen to more from our interviews with Adrian, click the links in the description. I read somewhere where Steve had said that he probably wasn't great to tour with, that Steve wasn't great to tour with, but he said that you were incredibly patient. What do you think he meant by that?
Well, I know that I'm very, I'm a down-to-earth guy. I'm Dutch, that's what my parents taught me. And Steve was at the peak of his career, and he was very, very eager to prove himself. And I noticed that, and I thought, well, go ahead, because I thought the reason why it worked very well between Steve and me on stage is that our styles are so different that I thought we really complemented each other. And Steve told me several times that he thought so too. So I never look at another guitar player as a competitor, because for me, you can't compete in music, You can compete in sports because you can measure it. The guy's a split second faster than the other guy. But for music, music for me is about expression, and you can't measure expression, You can say, well, this guy is more my taste than the other guy or whatever. But I don't care. And so Steve was quite busy with proving that he was the next hotshot guitar player. He was pretty present with that. So when somebody does that, I gladly take a step back, because I'm not on stage to prove myself. I'm on stage to press myself. And Steve was great. He was very nice, and we actually got on great during the tour, and we had a lot of fun, which you can see in the Now You're Gone video, for instance. The vibe in the Now You're Gone video in the bus, that is the vibe at the time, and it's all fine by me. When somebody wants to do his thing in a band, and it's another guitar player in this case, I always have the attitude of, go ahead, do whatever you think you should be doing, as long as it works within the band context. And I thought we did a great tour.
I can still remember when that album came out, and I just thought, what is Steve Vai? I just thought it's too over the top for Whitesnake is what I thought. And listening back when I was kind of putting things together for this interview, I still thought the same things. He does some cool things, but I did think it was over the top. Now, concerning your hand injury, does this start to develop on the 87 tour?
Yeah, well, actually, I only found out in 1999 what caused it. In 1980 or 81 or something, I had a car crash in Holland that resulted in a whiplash. But in those days, the term whiplash wasn't known yet. I had a very painful neck for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it subsided a little bit. And I went back to work as a graphic designer. That was my job at the time, and so I kind of forgot about it. When the problem started surfacing, looking back at it, already started surfacing in the Vandeberg days, because I remember the third Vandeberg album in the studio. I remember soaking my right arm in warm water in between solos to keep it relaxed, and I forgot about that. But when I found out that this whole thing in 1999, I ended up with an American surgeon that I read about, because it appeared that I had 2 neck hernias, and so the first thing when the surgeon saw the X-rays and MRIs, he said, "Well, you have 2 neck hernias, and do you remember, did you ever fall off a horse or have you been involved in a car crash?" And then I thought, oh, Jesus, that's right, at that point in time, it was already 1999. Yeah, it was 1999. So that was almost 20 years before that, that whiplash. And I forgot about it. And then suddenly I remembered it. I thought, yeah, that's right. So that surgeon took away those 2 neck hernias into operations. Then it's settled down. It was less painful and stuff. And the only thing is that over the years, in between, I developed too much tension in my arm, because like with...
To compensate?
Sports, like if a soccer player or whatever gets an injury, you try to compensate with your other leg, for instance. In my case, with putting more tension in my arm than you normally should, because you should keep it as relaxed as possible. So that actually took quite a long time to get back to normal, because I had to retrain my way of thinking and the way I use my right arm. But I was just, happy that I finally knew what it was.
So during that, it was so sore after the tour that I'm assuming you couldn't even cut rhythm tracks on Slip of the Tongue?
No, yeah, it happened during the pre-production of the Slip of the Tongue album. One morning, I know exactly what it was, I got up on time to prepare a couple of guitar parts that I wanted to play that day, on the songs that we worked on, and I thought, oh, that feels weird, it's like it was like somebody was holding my wrist or if that there was like a tight band around my wrist or whatever. I thought, wow, that's strange. So I went to the studio and it was still there. I soaked it in hot water and it was still there. And then I told the guys, I have to take today off because it feels really weird. So I went straight away to an acupuncturist, and then I went to another doctor in town. It was all in Lake Tahoe where we were preparing. So in the end, after about 3 or 4 days, it didn't get any better. And I called my dad in Holland and I said, well, Dad, what do you think? And he said, well, I'll call you back in a couple of hours. So he did. And he said, well, I found a therapist in Holland who is specialized in musicians' problems. He said, maybe it's good to come back to Holland because when it's not getting any better over there, it's better to get treatment from a specialist who is specialized in musicians. So I did. And in the meantime, Dave and I talked about it, and we thought, judging by Steve Vai's performance in Crossroads, in the movie where he was playing a lot bluesier, is playing in Dave Lee Roth band. We thought he would be like the perfect guy. I think the way it ended up a little bit over the top, and I know that Steve agrees too. What happened was basically they gave Steve the tapes and he recorded his guitar parts in his own studio. So he basically went berserk. He did everything he could to be Steve Vai on that album, and he is, he's an amazing player and amazingly creative, and he's got very much his own style. And whether it fits with Whitesnake, well, not like a glove, basically, because it doesn't have the bluesy type of thing that's always been in Whitesnake. And even though it's a fantastic album, I think, and I'm really proud of the songs that Dave and I come up with for that album, it's a little bit out of the vibe Whitesnake usually has, and has always had. So yeah, it's I wouldn't be surprised if at some point that I would re-record some of the songs, because I would like to play myself. And with Moon Kings, my former band, we played Judgment Day live, and then I had the chance to play it like I played it on our demos, and the way I came up with those parts, and that was more to the point and more more Whitesnakey.
Is there any reason you're not in Whitesnake nowadays?
Well, yeah, Dave and I have always kept in touch, but when we were doing really, really well with Vandeberg's Moon Kings the last couple of years, but the problem was that I think we talked about last time that Jan, the singer, couldn't do any touring outside of Holland because he's got this big farming company. That was getting on my nerves a little bit because I really love touring all over the world, and I had no other choice than to put together a new thing, which turned into Vandeberg. And so I just keep going, and David just keeps going too, who knows, sooner or later we may end up doing something together again or not. A lot of people actually have been asking me over the years about the frustration of not having been able to play on a slip of the tongue, and they go, we're so curious how it would have sounded. And today I can tell him, it would have sounded like the approach on Vandenberg 2020. That's how I wrote those songs, and that's what I had in mind as far as the sound goes,
Do you think there could ever be a reunion of the 87 or 89 touring lineups?
I don't know. I thought it would have been a great opportunity when the 1990 album came out. It would have been 30 years ago. So I remember suggesting to David, wouldn't it be a great thing to celebrate the 30-year anniversary by doing like a tour with that lineup? And David didn't sound excited about it, so I just let it go. But I thought it would have been fantastic, to do a Slip of the Tongue tour, with Steve and Rudy and Tommy, and I'm sure everybody would have been excited.